Okay. Yes, thanks for coming. I went to a learning conference recently, and I got to see what a lot of other schools were doing with technology. So I want to start with that. There's a school in Yokohama. Have you guys heard of this concept of one-to-one? One laptop for one student. Okay. Yokohama International School in Japan is at a point where they are not doing one-to-one, they're doing two-to-one. Tablet and laptop for each student. And they're using them in a lot of different ways, and they're able to do a lot of really cool things. And I was thinking, why can't we do that? Matisse in middle school, leave your plate there, come sit here. Matisse in middle school asked me a really good question. What are you guys here to do exactly? So I'm going to start with that. Here's what our goal is. Here's what kind of our objective is that we are going to develop and present a comprehensive technology and learning plan to the board by February. So this is what we're trying to make. And I'm talking about something real here, something that the school would potentially spend between $10,000 and $30,000 on, which means this is not like Mickey Mouse, something you do for class. This is something that the school would actually do. And I genuinely want your actual real help on this. Because it's too much for one person to do alone, and this is something that's going to affect you guys, except the seniors, because it's not going to happen this year. But it's going to be something that will tangibly affect you and how you learn and what it's like to be in school. Now, as part of this plan, we've got to generate support for both the process and for the plan among the school community. It's not something we can just pull out of the box one day and say, ta-da, here's the plan, let's all do it, and have everyone be like, okay, let's spend $30,000. No. This has got to be something that we're going to need to sell and to market. And this is also where I'm going to need your help. And finally, it's not this is not something where we spend the money and it's done. And all of a sudden everything changes and we're doing awesome things. This is something where once we do it, we're going to have people who are helping other people to use our plan the most effectively. Right? If you go to someone who doesn't know how to use a computer and you give them a brand new MacBook and say, here you go, they're going to look at it for a long time. You're probably going to push it to the side.
No, I would actually take it.
Right? I'm sure you would know.
Well, maybe just sell it.
So, there's a story for you. 5 friends work at a company, and one day their boss calls them up and says, I got a job for you. And the first guy goes, okay. And the first guy's a musician. So he grabs his guitar. And he runs out the door to go do the job. The second guy is a gardener. This is a flower. Right? So he grabs a flower. And he runs out the door to go do the job. Third guy's an author. So he grabs his pen. She grabs her pen and runs out the door and says, I'm going to go do the job. And fourth guy is a tailor. So he grabs his scissors and he runs out the door to go do the job. And the fifth girl is a dentist. So she grabs her toothbrush and runs out the door to go do the job. And so they get to work, and they ask the boss, we've got our tools, what's the job? And the boss says, I want you to build me a house. And the musician looks at her guitar and says, this is kind of useless. And the gardener looks at her flower and says, a little less useless, but still kind of useless. And the author looks at her pen and says, okay, great. And the tailor looks at his scissors and says,
I can make the bus.
and the dentist looks at her toothbrush and says, right. And so the problem in this case is that these people chose their tools before they knew what the job was. They chose their tools before they knew what they were going to build. And so when we do this planning, we have to know what we're going to build before we choose our tools. And when I'm talking about tools here, I'm talking about computers. Making a plan is not saying, I like Macs, let's buy MacBooks. Because we don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're trying to build. If you're trying to, and what we're trying to build is the most important question. Let's take this example of houses. If you live in Thailand, where it floods and rains a lot, you're going to build a house that looks like this, up on stilts. Still a house, looks a little bit different from the last one. If you live in the Middle East, you're going to build a house that looks like this, made out of stone. Helps keep the house a little cooler in the summer. You don't need it up on stilts because it never rains. And if you live in Seoul, Korea, you're going to need a place to live that looks kind of like this, because there are 25 million people who live in Seoul and there isn't a lot of space, so you have to build up. So before we even talk about what computers we'd like to see, we're going to talk about what we want to build, what our school culture is. So to use this example of a house, we're going to define our goals. Okay, what kind of house do we want to build? Then we're going to talk about what kind of activities we need to do to build that house. So for example, we need to cut wood, we need to run wire for electricity, we need to nail beams together. We're getting a little bit more specific. And then, and only then, are we going to choose the tools that we need. The hammer, the nails, the ladders, what have you. And so thinking about how we want our school to be as a learning culture, the first thing we're going to talk about is what do we want the learning environment at the school to be like? What do we want our students to be able to do? What do you guys want to be able to do? And I'm going to show you some examples the next time we meet of what this might look like. All right? But for example, Carla just applied for a scholarship. You have to write an essay, but you also had to do what? Make a...
The video is optional.
Okay, but you made a video because you thought it would help you. And had you ever really been taught video creation at all? Okay, and this is something, how much money is on the line with a scholarship, if you don't mind me asking?
It's not a fixed price.
That's not a fixed price. What does a year of college in the States cost? Probably $30,000. Okay? So a scholarship that pays for even 1 year of college, $30,000, and you're having to write an essay and do a video. One of these things we practice a lot, and one of these things we don't practice as much, but is becoming more and more important. Right? And it's not that we're going to stop writing essays, but we need to start learning how to do other things too. And you guys are part of the group that knows where you want to go and what you want to be able to do. All right, so here's how the process is going to go, and this is from now until February. And I'm not saying you need to commit right now, but this is how long the process is going to take. And you need to be thinking about how much time and energy you have to do this. So, first step. Can you see that? Okay, first step, brainstorm our goals. Once again, as a school, what do we want to educate our students to be able to do? And this is going to happen in 3 separate groups. Group 1, the parents. Group 2, the teachers, and I'll deal with them. And group 3, the students. This is where you guys are. So we're going to brainstorm some goals. But then we need to come together for step 2 as a group, and we need to have representatives from the faculty, the parents, and the students meet and say, okay, we're going to agree these are the outcomes that we want. These are the results that we want. Okay, and step 3. Once we've done that, then we're going to go on to the specific activities. All right. So an example of this might be we need to learn how to do videos, all right, as an activity. We're going to do this in 3 separate groups just to keep it manageable, and then we're going to come together. And we're going to agree on what kind of activities do our kids need to be, do you students need to be doing. I'll stop talking about you as kids, sorry. Okay, and then and only then, what's our last kind of step? Tools, right. We're going to talk about this tools. And here's where we're going to mix it up. What I actually want to do is combine into groups of students, parents, and teachers in one group, and have you come together and say, okay, I think we need to buy this many computers to make this viable. And do we need to hire additional people? Do we need to spend more money on internet? We're going to be looking at the school budget to see how much money we actually have. And you guys are going to have to go online and cost out how much this is actually going to cost. Because Once we have our plans and we finalize I want to have 2 or 3 competing plans. Choice is good because the best ideas are going to rise to the top. And after we have 2 or 3 competing plans, you're going to present to the board. I'll be there, but I want you to present it to the board. And you need to tell them, this is what we want to do, this is why we want to do it, and this is how much it's going to cost. And they're going to give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if they give us a thumbs down, it might be, okay, we just need to go back and rework it a little bit. Or it might be thumbs up when we have the money, which is kind of where we are with the swimming pool. The board has said, we're going to build a swimming pool as soon as we get 170 students. So it's not necessarily that at the end of the year we're going to have devices, but we're going to know what we need to do and where we need to go to buy them, so that when we have the money, we can pull the trigger and it happens.
Yeah.
Question?
So the plan entails what sort of devices and how to get them, how much money, what else?
It entails, how do we get them into the country? How do we distribute them to parents and students? How do we get parents to agree?
Okay.
What if parents don't want to buy a laptop for their kids? Will the school buy a laptop for the kids? Will the kids buy their own laptops? Should we be going Windows? Should we be going Mac? Should we be going Linux? What other equipment do we need to buy? Who's going to support it? Are we going to keep the labs? Are we going to get rid of them? Do we need to buy more Wi-Fi points? Stuff like that. Like, it's a real project. Yeah.
So it would be can we choose whether we want either Mac or Windows, or can we get half or?
This is, all options are on the table.
No, maybe keywords process.
Yeah, but this is what we're going to talk about in step 3. Steps 1 and 2, we have to figure out what do we want to be able to do. Mahmoud. Yes, that's why I'm calling on you.
Is there going to be like a choice to like sell things?
Okay, and this is what we'll talk about in step 3. Is that what we want to do? Does the school want to sell it? Or do we just say you need to buy one on your own?
No, I mean like the school's things that the school doesn't even use at all, and it's still
All options are on the table. And I'm not saying we're going to do it, but I do want you to suggest it.
So basically right now you're kind of getting computers and maybe getting parents to buy computers for the students?
So my point is we don't have a plan.
Oh, okay.
My point is, there is no plan.
You have an initial thought behind all of this.
I have a lot of half-formed thoughts that people may like or people may not like. And that's why we're here, to generate some thoughts together. Okay, so what's our immediate step? Here's what we need to do. Lunch is over at 12, right? Okay, we're going to have, instead of breaking into groups then, we're going to have a little short class discussion about a few points, and we're going to have to set another time to meet. So, here are short-term issues. Only one parent has emailed me and said, I'm interested in being a part of this. So that's kind of a problem. So we need to talk about how can we advertise this initiative to parents and get their input. We need to talk about how can we keep the community and ourselves excited about this initiative. The problem with any long-term project is that you can lose interest over time. So how are we going to keep up this excitement? How are we going to communicate? When should we meet? How are we going to be working together? Like what tools are we going to use to work together? And what should we call this? We need to come up with a catchy name. I've called it the Learning Revolution just for today because it sounded catchy. You may have a better idea. So, and that is fine. So let's do this. Let me give you guys, and this is not enough time, 3 minutes. Let's do this. This couch, talk about the first 2 questions. This side of the room, talk about the second 2 questions. And Tiana, Karima, Shek, and Melinda, you guys talk about the last 2 questions. 3 minutes, we're going to talk, and then I'll let you go. Go. Yep.